Welcome back to our channel, where we explore the pivotal moments that shaped World War II. Today, we're diving into one of the most consequential bombing campaigns in history, a relentless assault that would test the resilience of an entire nation. This is the story of the Blitz. The story begins in 1940, following the Battle of Britain. After failing to achieve air superiority, Nazi Germany shifted tactics. Rather than continuing daylight assault on RAF airfields, Adolf Hitler and Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring issued a new directive on September 6, 1940. The Luftwaffe would now unleash terror on British civilians. They called it Blitzkrieg Lightning War. Britain would call it the Blitz. On September 7, 1940, a day that became known as Black Saturday, the German bombing campaign began. At approximately 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 348 German bombers, escorted by 617 fighters, appeared over London's skyline. For the next 2 hours, they dropped both high-explosive bombs and incendiary devices on the defenseless capital. Guided by the raging fires they created, a second wave arrived at sunset and continued attacking until 4:30 the following morning. When the smoke cleared, the numbers were staggering. Over 430 people lay dead, with another 2,600 seriously wounded. But this was only the beginning. Starting from Black Saturday, London would endure bombing raids for 57 consecutive nights. The sheer scale was unprecedented. Between September 7th and December 2nd, 1940, there were more than 350 air raid alerts across the city. Some nights saw as many as 9 separate alarms. The Luftwaffe employed sophisticated tactics to overcome British defences. They used Pathfinder aircraft equipped with electronic navigation systems to drop marker flares, guiding subsequent bombers to their targets with deadly precision. High-explosive bombs were dropped first, destroying water supplies, electricity networks, and roads, making firefighting nearly impossible. Following waves of bombers then dropped incendiary devices that set whole neighbourhoods ablaze. The British, however, developed equally sophisticated countermeasures. Barrage balloons large, unmanned balloons tethered by steel cables were deployed across the city. These created an invisible wall that forced German bombers to fly at higher altitudes, reducing their bombing accuracy. Searchlights illuminated enemy aircraft during night raids, while anti-aircraft guns, guided by the newly developed radar system, inflicted growing losses on the German fleet. Over 100 German aircraft were brought down by contact with barrage balloon cables during the entire Blitz campaign. Beyond London, the Luftwaffe spread destruction across Britain. Liverpool, Hull, Bristol, Cardiff, Portsmouth, Plymouth, Southampton, and Swansea all suffered devastating raids. Industrial centres like Birmingham, Coventry, Manchester, and Sheffield were deliberately targeted to cripple British war production. The overall campaign resulted in over 40,000 British civilian deaths, with nearly half occurring in London alone. In the capital, more than 1 million homes were destroyed or severely damaged. One of the most notorious raids occurred on November 14, 1940, against the city of Coventry. Codenamed Operation Moonlight Sonata, this attack has become infamous for its sheer concentration of firepower. Nearly 500 bombers, gathered from airfields across occupied Europe, descended on the medieval city during an 11-hour period. Using a new communication system the British could not intercept, and benefiting from a full moon that provided perfect visibility, the Germans dropped 500 tons of high-explosive bombs, 30,000 incendiaries, and 50 landmines. The destruction was apocalyptic. Coventry's beautiful 14th century Cathedral of St. Michael was completely destroyed, the only English cathedral to fall during the entire war. The Central Library, Market Hall, and countless medieval buildings vanished in the flames. Over 43,000 homes, more than half the city's entire housing stock, were damaged or destroyed. Fires were so intense that the heat and smoke reached the cockpits of German bombers flying at 6,000 feet above. The destruction was so complete that Nazi propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels coined a new German verb, Coventrieren, meaning to raze a city to the ground. But the Coventry raid, devastating as it was, would be eclipsed by an even worse assault on London itself. On December 29, 1940, the city experienced what became known as the Second Great Fire of London. On this single night, 136 German bombers dropped over 100,000 bombs, mostly small incendiary devices, on the city in just 3.5 hours. The concentration was so intense that fires covered an area greater than the original Great Fire of London in 1666. The Germans had timed this raid deliberately. They attacked during low tide on the River Thames, making it harder for firefighters to draw water. Many commercial buildings and warehouses were locked and unoccupied that Sunday evening, allowing incendiary bombs to ignite unchecked. 1,500 fires burned simultaneously across London. The medieval churches and guild halls of the Square Mile, the heart of Britain's financial district, suffered catastrophically. 19 churches, 8 of which had been designed by the legendary Christopher Wren after the 1666 fire, were completely destroyed. 31 guild halls were incinerated. 5 million books in the publishing district went up in flames. Yet from this hellscape, a symbol emerged. St. Paul's Cathedral, Christopher Wren's masterpiece, became the enduring image of London's defiance. When an incendiary bomb pierced its dome, a firewatch team, stationed there at Prime Minister Winston Churchill's personal order, extinguished it before it could take hold. The cathedral's silhouette, surrounded by flames and smoke, was captured in a photograph that has become iconic, a symbol of British resilience in the face of Nazi terror. The bombing intensified once more on May 10th and 11th, 1941. Over 500 German bombers dropped 701 tons of high-explosive bombs and 2,393 incendiary devices on London in a single night, the largest single attack of the Blitz. Nearly 1,500 people were killed, with another 1,800 seriously injured. 11,000 homes were destroyed. The fires were so massive they could be seen from 160 miles away. The House of Commons took a direct hit. Westminster Abbey suffered severe damage. The Tower of London, Lambeth Palace, and dozens of other historic landmarks were struck. The House of Lords, the Royal Gallery, and the Law Lords Corridor all burned. For a moment, Britain's heart seemed broken. Yet this attack, paradoxically, marked the end of the Blitz. The very night of May 10-11 would be the last major German bombing offensive for 2 years. Hitler had made a fateful decision. He was turning his gaze eastward to the Soviet Union. Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union that began on June 22, 1941, redirected the Luftwaffe's resources. German bombers that had terrorized Britain were now needed in the east, in the skies over Russia, and in support of the invasion. The Blitz fizzled out, replaced by occasional small-scale nuisance raids. Londoners and Britons across the nation emerged from their shelters cautiously, hoping the worst had passed. But in April and May 1942, Hitler ordered a new bombing campaign, the Baedeker raids. Named after the famous German tourist guides, these attacks targeted Britain's most historic and culturally significant cities. Not for military value, but purely for psychological impact. Nazi propagandist Baron Gustav Braun von Sturm declared that the Luftwaffe would bomb every building marked with 3 stars in the Baedeker Guide. The raids fell on Canterbury, Bath, Exeter, Norwich and York. Exeter was attacked first on April 23-24, 1942. 70 people were killed in the initial raid, and another 90 died in a subsequent attack on May 4th. Over 600 shops were destroyed by fires that devastated the shopping centre. Bath, with its beautiful Georgian architecture, was struck on April 25, 26. York, Norwich and Canterbury each suffered in turn. Though fewer people died compared to the Blitz of 1940-41, the Baedeker raids killed over 1,600 civilians and destroyed or damaged 50,000 homes, including many irreplaceable cultural monuments. The campaign revealed that German air power, while still formidable, was weakening. The Luftwaffe could not sustain these operations while simultaneously defending against RAF attacks on German cities. By mid-1942, the Baedeker raids ceased as aircraft were needed elsewhere. It would not be until January 1944 that German bombers returned to London in significant numbers. Operation Steinbock, known to the British as the Baby Blitz, was Hitler's last major bombing offensive of the war. On the night of January 21-22, 1944, over 400 bombers attacked London in 2 waves, marking the beginning of a 5-month campaign. Westminster erupted in flames. The Embankment, New Scotland Yard, Parliament, and numerous other central London locations burned. The Germans lost 329 aircraft. During Operation Steinbock, nearly 60% of the 524 bombers committed to the operation. Despite these losses, the campaign killed around 1,500 civilians and injured nearly 3,000 more. Yet militarily, it achieved nothing. British and American bombers continued their devastating assault on Germany without pause. Meanwhile, the Luftwaffe hemorrhaged aircraft and experienced pilots it could not afford to lose. When D-Day arrived on June 6, 1944, the German Air Force was so depleted by Steinbock losses that it could barely mount a defence against the Allied invasion. The Blitz, the Baedeker raids, and Operation Steinbock collectively represent one of the most significant bombing campaigns in military history. Together, these operations killed over 40,000 British civilians, left more than 1 million homeless, and destroyed vast areas of Britain's cities. Yet Hitler's gamble ultimately failed. Rather than breaking British morale or forcing Britain from the war, the bombing campaign had the opposite effect. The experience unified the British people. From bomb shelters and Anderson shelters to the streets of London, Blitz spirit became a rallying cry. Britons pulled together, sharing resources, volunteering as firefighters and air raid wardens, and supporting their neighbours through the darkness. This unity strengthened rather than weakened British resolve. It became part of the national mythology the moment when ordinary people faced extraordinary terror and emerged unbroken. Furthermore, by diverting German resources to bombing campaigns against civilians rather than focusing on military targets, Hitler weakened his war effort. The RAF was allowed to rebuild and rearm. British aircraft production, uninterrupted by the bombing campaign, actually increased. The bombers that terrorised London could have been defending German skies from the growing might of the Allied air forces. The Blitz stands as a testament to both the horrors of modern warfare and the resilience of ordinary people facing unimaginable adversity. It was a campaign meant to break Britain, but instead revealed the unbreakable spirit of a nation determined to survive. From the rubble rose not surrender, but defiance. From the ashes came not defeat, but the resolve to fight on until ultimate victory. The legacy of the Blitz endures in London's architecture, its monuments, and its collective memory. It reminds us that in humanity's darkest hours, the spirit of communities can shine brightest. Thank you for watching. If you found this exploration of World War II history enlightening, please subscribe to our channel and share this video with anyone interested in understanding these pivotal moments that shaped our world.